Hi there, this is John Canton from JRC Handcrafted Whips, and this is another video I'm making for my friend Sue, who had some questions plating her whip. When I start my whips now, I generally end up using a square start, and I don't like to use the version of a square start where you have to put pins and things and lay them on there in X's. I find that a difficult way to work. So I did post a video a while back about an easier way of doing a square start. I use a hemostat to get things going. I have since gotten a little better with things, and I don't need to use the hemostat anymore. I just pinch them between my fingers like this. Now, what I've done is I've marked my strands, the centers of my strands, and silver Sharpie, and then also black Sharpie. And for the darker colored strands, I'll use my silver Sharpie to mark the centers. You can see those little marks there. And I also have these ones marked with the black, just because it's a lighter color, it's easier to see the centers of my strands. Because I'm going to be doing this handle in a diamond, a two-strand diamond, I'm going to start it off right from my square start. So I'm going to take two strands, I'm going to go over two, under two, and over two. And then I'll just drape that over my thumb so it's out of the way. Now I'll take my next two strands, I go over, under, and drape that over my thumb again. And then I'll take this last set and drape that over. Now, what I do is I'll insert my hand in between the last strand, that's the last two strands that are left over, and the six that I've pulled off to the side. And I'll get a good pinch over here on the other side of all those strands. And then I'll take this too, and I'll again go over, under, over, under. And what that leaves me with is a little loop up here that is the start of my square start. So now what I'll do is I'll just kind of work these strands a little bit to get their centers all approximately in the same area. So anyway, I've got my strand that's over the top here, so these two strands will have to be my next pull, and I go under, over, and under, over. It's a little hard getting the strands straight initially until things get a little tighter, but I really can't tighten them down well until I get a few strands plaited. Next, and I'll reach around with the hand on that side, pin what I've got the top of my plait here, plate with my thumb, and then around the other side I'll start inserting my first finger where that strand's going to be going, right? It's going to go under those, it's going to go over those, it's going to go under those, and then it's going to go over those. And then I'll just pull my two strands. I'm not trying to pull anything tight right now. I need to get my square start anchored a little bit first. So again, all right, I got these two strands. I insert my finger underneath that, and then I start looking over here for where it goes. It goes under those, it goes over those, it goes under those, and it goes over those. And now I can reach this hand through, following those fingers back, to find the strand over here and pull it down tight. Well, not tight yet, but it is about time to tighten things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this up towards the end, and I'm actually going to slide it a little bit past the end, because as I pull it tight, it's going to shrink down. Gently start pulling these to tighten them down a bit. And as I'm doing this, I'm trying to make sure that the strands are laying straight. They're not crossing each other. Like right here, I got a bad cross going, so I'm going to straighten that out with my thumbnail so that they're not crossing each other badly. It's still happening right up here as well. I'm not as concerned about getting it straight up there. I'll put a little effort into it, but that's all going to be covered with the heel knot in a little while, so it doesn't matter a whole lot. So I tightened down one side just a little bit. I'm going to go over here to the other side now and tighten this down a little bit. Again, I'm not pulling real hard yet. I'm just trying to get some of the looseness out of it and make sure that the knot stays up here at the end of my whip. And now that I'm on my second go round, I am pulling this significantly harder. Right now it's looking pretty good. I've got a little silver mark right here that's easily going to be covered by my heel knot, and I can see actually that I do have a cross on this one, so I'm going to have to loosen that up a little bit and straighten that out. So now I can start plating the rest of my handle now that I got that square serts pretty good up there on the end where I want it. And again, all right, these two are pointing that direction, so I insert my finger under there, and then that finger that I inserted starts finding its way where the strand's going to go. It goes under those two, it goes over those two, under those two, and over those two. So I just reach around with that finger, and now I can reach through with my other hand and pull those through. I did want to mention, and that is, I don't have to pull 2 strands at a time. I like to pull 2 strands at a time because it is faster. So if I have a problem with my grip, hey, I'm getting old, arthritis starts setting in, whatever it might be, maybe I have to pull these strands one at a time. So I go over here and make sure I pull the top strand first, pull that through, place it, and then I'm going to go through here and pull that second one, place it, and give it a pull. And that one just slid really bad. There's my mark. There's my mark, which is now going to be visible. So I'm going to have to back this up a little bit and make sure that that mark gets back here towards where that heel knot belongs. All right, so we're going to fix this mark that I just mentioned. Right, so I've got that little bit of a silver marker there that actually needs to be back here somewhere in the knot. So I've got my fid. This is another fid. This is just a Phillips head screwdriver that I ground down the head, so it's not a Phillips anymore, it's just pointy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace back that strand, so that's the bottom, the 2 diamond. I'm going to follow that back here, and back here, so I can see back here. If I pull that, get that underneath, I can pull that strand back up where it belongs, and now I got to follow it around the other side, and it's coming back down again as the bottom of my diamond. So it's this strand right here, and I'll pull that a little bit so it's tight, and then pull that the rest of the way. So here's the way I'm pulling my strands. I'll reach through here, I'll grab that, and I wrap it underneath, so I end up with it looped over my first finger, wrapped under my pinky, and the side of my pinky is what actually takes the force of the pull. I end up with some really good calluses on the side of my pinky, which is a strange place to have a callus. And you notice that because of my hand placement, I've already got this one inserted. Go back over here and pull that. Right. And as I go to anchor that down, I'm already inserting this finger under those 2 strands because I know that's where I'm going to be going in a little bit. I pull these through, and this hand is already in place. That's one of those little secrets to plating quicker, I think. Again, my first finger is already in position under the 2 strands I'm going to be pulling. If I was only going to be pulling one strand, I would have inserted it under one strand. Okay, so I'm down to the transition now where I'm going to change from my diamond plate to herringbone. But before I do that, there's another thing that I wanted to point out for my friend, and that is that the point that I'm going to be creating for my herringbone, the way I have my pattern laid out at the moment, is not going to give me the pattern that I want in my herringbone, because my point is right here, and you can see I have the lighter brown over here and lighter brown over here. I need to actually rotate my handle 2 strands to the right so that my point is here. Is because of the way that I did my square start, which order my strands were in, that is causing this. My point is that I don't have to unbraid all this and try it again. All I got to do is turn this a little bit, and I'm going to claim that this is my center line now. And as I do that, I take a look at my plating here and it's like, oh, that doesn't look right. Well, that's because I've got a little bit, it's like I pulled some extra strands from one side. So I'm going to undo this strand here. Now I have my 2 tan strands at the center. All right, so now I'm going to work my way from my checkerboard into herringbone using what I learned in a Sword Guy Builds video on how to do this. So basically what we do is we count out of one pattern and into the other pattern. I have 8 strands on each side, so 8 is the number that I'm working with. Not the 16 total strands, but just the 8. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my first strand over here that's going to start my herringbone. Counting that as the number 1, I'm going to one strand as if I was in a herringbone and the other 7 as if I was still in the checkerboard. So to get my checkerboard pattern, which is where I have to start because, you know, coming around from the back, I go my over 2, under 2, over 2, over 1, and then the last strand, all right, I have to do as if I was doing the checkerboard pattern, which means I would be over. So it's actually looking exactly the same as if I was still doing the checkerboard pattern. Don't worry about that. So I did 1. Here comes strand number 2. So I go pretend as if I was still doing my checkerboard, and that means I need to go over this one, under these 2, over these 2, under 1, because the last 2 I need to do as if I'm in the herringbone. So I'm going over 2 there. Alright, so that's number 2. On to number 3. Still pretending I'm in checkerboard. Back here. Under 1, over 2, under 2, and number 3, I'm going to be over 3 for my herringbone. Alright, here's number 4. So I pretend that I'm doing my checkerboard for 4 strands. That's under 2, over 2, and then over 4. Here's number 5 strand. I go under 2, over 3, and then the rest I pretend that I'm doing my herringbone, which means under and over 4. Alright, next strand. I'm on to 6, so I need to go over that one, under that one, and then I am in my herringbone for the rest of this, which means under a few and over 4. And These strands right at the transition, I am pulling just about as tight as I can, just as hard as I can. All right, next strand, this would be number 7. So I am under that one, I am over that one, and then I pretend that I am doing herringbone for the rest of this, which means over 2 more, no, under 2 more, and over 4. All right, and now I'm done. After that, I just continue with my herringbone, so I'm under 4, over 4. And as I'm working these, I will kind of pull them into place a little bit to make sure that they're laying where they belong, because there's some odd skipping from what you're used to seeing, perhaps. Because even though I've done my 8 to get into the herringbone, I'm not fully into the herringbone yet. I got this strand here, for instance, that's going to have to go over a few more strands first before it actually gets into a proper looking herringbone. Alright, and now I am to my lighter color strands, and we're going to see how these strands match up really nice for the pattern that I'm trying to get. As I'm pulling the strand around the back, I'm being real careful to lay it flat with my fingers. So I'm reaching back here, I'm pulling that, and I'm pulling it into position, right into the groove where it belongs, so that it's straight and flat in the back where you really can't see, right? So the trick for me is to make sure you get it laying there where it belongs. So I grab that, right, and I pull that basically into position. Then I get my grip over the pinky, give it a good hard yank, and lay that in position. And you can see now that my lighter colored strands are matching up just the way I want them to.